Welcome back, class. The final card type that we're going to be going over in Lesson 1 is action cards. And this will be maybe a bit longer than our other bare basics for card types because actions are a little bit more difficult to describe. The thing that sets them apart color-wise, they are blue. I know on my camera resolution, especially with some of the ones I was able to find, they will look more gray on the camera. But trust me, in person, they are very blue. So if you see a blue card, it is an action card. And of course, on some of the old ones, it will say action over here. And on some of the newer ones, it will say action down here. But these are blue cards. Actions are tricky, because unlike a foundation that you can play during your hand at any time during your turn to play a card as a form, or an attack, which you can only play on your turn, or an asset that you could play like a foundation, actions can only be played to use their specific effects. You can't just say, I'm going to play Sakio's Gamble without playing the abilities on Sakio's Gamble. So actions tell you when they can be played. So for instance, we have Cute Host Koto. Her ability here is a first form ability. So this means at the beginning of your turn, after you've drawn your cards, the first form that you play, or the first card that you play, the first action you take, could be this ability. But if you don't do this as the first action you play during your turn, or I shouldn't say action, the first move that you make, the first card that you play, then you won't be able to use this card for the rest of your turn. So as a form ability, that is how you play a form ability. You play it from your hand. At any other time you could play like a foundation or an action. Or you have Sakio's Gamble, which has an enhance ability. So you could only play this action using this ability during an attack's enhance step. It also has a responsibility. So if the trigger on this responsibility is met, you may play this action using this ability when that requirement is fulfilled. Same thing with Showdown. It has response abilities. I guess I should push this up here a little closer. This has responsibilities which have their own triggers, and once those triggers are met, you may play this card from your hand to activate these effects. So, unlike normal foundations, which can just be played at any time during your turn, action or attack cards, which can be played during your turn, or assets, which can also be played at any time during your turn, actions can only be played when their specific effects would be used, and you still do have to make your control check against the card's difficulty, including progressive difficulty, which we will go over in subsequent videos. But that's what makes actions pretty tricky. Kind of a tricky to learn and difficult to master ability. I think this is probably the most complex card type in the game, aside from all the various abilities that characters can have, simply because it's hard to know sometimes when to play your actions, which is why your decks usually won't have a lot of them. Again, unless you're an action-oriented strategy. But as I said, based on the different types of abilities the card has, that will tell you when you can use this card. If it has an enhance ability on it, you can play that action during the enhance step. If it has a response, you can play that action card when that response's trigger is met. If it's a form effect, you're allowed to play it from your hand during your turn. At any point, you could play any other card. So, I hope that helps break it down a little bit. As I said, it's tricky to describe actions without showing you more like during the pace of a turn how to play an action, when to play an action. So if you do have a local game store where you can find people who play, they could probably show you in a more real-time sense how to play an action. And I will be going into more detail on how to play cards like throughout your turn, such like that. I will be adding actions into those lesson plans as well. So this has been this will be the conclusion of Lesson 1, which is all of the card types and their anatomies. I hope you found this easy to follow and very useful. I know I threw out a lot of terms that we haven't gone over yet, but I wanted to get the card types out of the way since that would be the most important part in deck building and starting to craft what you want to do. So, stay tuned for Lesson 2, and until then, class dismissed.